Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of From Page to Stage. I'm your host, Wendy Corner, and this is for you if you are an entrepreneur. Yes, you heard me right, entrepreneur. Page and stage. You might think, hang on a minute, Wendy, where are you going with this? Well, if you're an entrepreneur, you may have a solo book out. You may have a chapter in a book, but you're definitely going to have socials, aren't you? And what's that if it's not published work? Maybe I've just blown the boundary on what you consider to be an author. Hold that thought. What about the stage? If you're an entrepreneur, don't you go to networking meetings? You maybe do podcasts. There's also that as well as the virtual work and the in-person work. So if you're sitting there going, I can't possibly do this public speaking thing, I think you can. If you can have a one-on-one conversation with somebody, you can do a podcast, just like we're doing now. Note to self. Anyway, that's the preamble as to what you're doing here, and welcome. I would love to introduce you to a lovely lady by the name of Jennifer Riggs. Jennifer is an amazing mindset coach, hypnosis person as well. I don't like using the word hypnotist because that pulls people into the worlds of stage hypnotism, which it ain't. It frankly ain't.
Sure.
So I could tell you more about Jennifer, but she knows herself far better than I do. Jennifer, tell us a bit about yourself, how you've got to where you are now.
Hi, Wendy. Thanks so much for having me. So yes, I am a hypnotherapist or hypnotist, but yes, I agree with you on that. Hypnotherapist sounds much more in line with what we're actually doing, and that is a form of therapy using your subconscious mind. And so I work with clients in that way to help them change their mindsets. So basically looking at emotions from events in the past and moving forward into the future by sorting through those events in the past, like processing those feelings and moving into the future with a better mindset. So hypnotherapy and mindset coaching kind of go together in that way. So we want to change our mindset. We've got to look at our feelings. And that's what I do with people. I am also an author and just recently wrote a book. And I know that's something we'll talk about a little later, but yes, that is a piece of what I do as well. So that's
Beautiful. And audience, just to let you know, I've been listening to another podcast that Jennifer recorded very recently. And it's looking at delving into those emotions that we've kind of pushed away into a drawer and don't want to deal with. And yet those are what are basically running your present life.
absolutely.
Just saying. So if you have a drawer that you've been pushing things into, know that it will open of its own accord, usually at the most inopportune moments.
Exactly. When we don't want it to, it's going to pop right open and everything's going to spill out. And absolutely, that is, honestly, that's when I see people the most, is when that drawer has exploded. You know, it's like that drawer in your kitchen, the junk drawer. We throw, the old rubber bands and tape and everything that we can't deal with right now. We just throw it in there and we close it because we don't want to look at it. We all have those in our mind too. And that's exactly what you were saying. Those are our emotions. Those emotions have gotten shoved in the drawer. And then one day you go to open the drawer and like when you start to open it and it sticks and it won't open because there's one too many things in there. And then you maybe pull a little harder and then a big mess. And that is exactly what happens with our subconscious mind. And what we want to do is sort through those emotions, process them, change the way we think. There's so much power in that.
Isn't there? Oh, lovely. Thank you very much. I think just sort of goosey thoughts at that one. Oh, okay. This podcast is entitled From Page to Stage. I want to take you back in time. When did you start to write? Now, I don't mean the mechanics of it, the ABC. When did you get into the juiciness of writing and expressing your thoughts on paper?
Well, honestly, I actually, when I was much, much younger, like probably middle school, I always said I was going to be an author. I always thought I would write children's books, though, which is not what I'm doing, but maybe someday. But
Mhm.
I remember writing short stories back then and poems and journaling, all those kinds of things, and kind of had done it my whole life, but never put it in the front seat, and it kind of kept pulling at me, and have had different thoughts come up and ideas for stories. And I thought at first I was going to write a fiction book, and got led to a nonfiction self-help because of what I do professionally. But I have also realized that I can do both. I can write fiction and have that self-help element in there, because a lot of times people are reading books and not really knowing that they need to sort something out, but that
Yeah.
fiction will help bring that out too. So that's something that's kind of down the road, but I kind of,
Percolating a little.
yeah, it's percolating. I've started a couple ideas. So yeah.
Oh, cool, cool. Audience, we'll have Jennifer back when she's got her first novel out.
Wonderful.
The thing is, when we tell stories, that's when points can get in under the radar of the conscious mind, isn't it? And this is how we've passed on pre-writing generationally. The oral tradition was how we passed on all the traditions, the information of our clan, of our tribe. And yes, you're right that so much of that attached to a story is what we can take in, and you can attract, so you can sort of pack some punches in a story that if you said it straight to somebody's face, you probably would get the punch back.
Right. Well, it's very hard to see in ourselves something that maybe needs to be healed or changed. But if we can look at it, from an outside view, it's a little easier. And that's when we kind of get the nudge, because or sometimes we'll see it in someone else. Like if we can see something in someone else, most often there's something inside of us that's quite similar that needs to be processed too. So I think that's where that power comes in the fictional writing, to be able to see it from an outside view, if you're not already kind of aware of it.
Yeah. And that's the thing, isn't it? When you tell a good story, you're drawing your audience in to put themselves in the actual story itself.
Yes.
One of the characters, they then become and go, oh, how do we react at that point? And that's your way in. Love it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Excellent. Okay. So we've spoken about the fact that your writing started middle schoolish, and the journaling was always part of life. Brilliant. I'm going to transfer over to the stage bit now. Tell us about your speaking journey. How's that been?
Well, the funniest thing about that is something I said I would never do is do speaking. Actually, always was terrified of speaking to people or being in front of a group. And I do remember in college, everyone had to take a speech class, and it was just the worst thing I could think of doing. I didn't want to do it, and when I took the class, I actually felt pretty good with how I did. But then after leaving the class, I mean, this is a very long time ago. I'm in my 50s, so this is a long time ago. I've never done it since, up until just a couple years ago, when I started doing some speaking and things related to the work I do, going to some conferences, speaking at some women's conferences, and podcasts and stuff like that. So it's been a short journey in that way, because I said I would never do it, and I actually really enjoy it now. So it's kind of interesting how you think that's something I could never do, but here I am. So, I think that's a good message for people to say, just because you think that you can't, that doesn't mean that that's true. And
Flipping that internal script again, isn't it? Yes.
falls into that limiting belief. And I think I actually had to do some of my own healing in order to get to a place where I could do that, where I wasn't terrified to talk to people or talk in front of people. It's such an interesting journey, finding out about yourself.
Oh, isn't it just? As part of your work, have you done workshops, or has your primary work been one-on-one?
I just do one-on-one for the most part. I have done group, like I do a Zoom group for free every month with on my page I offer to people. And I used to do mindset coaching for a sports dietitian. And once a month I would do a group with her clients who were all athletes, which was kind of an interesting, a different take, because, it's helping people break through these issues about food or exercise and finding out, that they can meet the goals that they have. And it was like, the self-worth holding them back. So I wouldn't say workshops per se, but groups definitely. In the last probably 3 years, I've been doing that, but one-on-one for the most part. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, the reason I'm mentioning that is because there are different skill sets, complementary but different, required for, say, leading a workshop, doing a keynote, and all the wonderful virtual stuff.
Yes.
Podcasts, again, depending on whether, like the one we were talking about earlier, whether it's going to be audio only or whether, like this one, is going to be visual as well. So there are different complementary but subtly different skills required. That was what I was asking you on that one. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I tend to, I'm sorry. I tend to throw myself into things without really, kind of thinking maybe about how is that going to be. So when you say, oh, standing up on a stage or whatever, the first time I actually spoke at a conference, I had never even been in front of a microphone, and I said, sure, I'll do it. And so, and I think sometimes that's the best way for me, is to just say, even if it scares me, I'm just going to go ahead and do it and see what happens, but again, that's a mindset change that I had to work through too, because in the past I would never have done that. So
go you. I'm curious. I mean, I know that this hasn't been a feature in my schooling, because I, as you can tell from the accent, I went through school in the UK. We didn't have presentations to do as part of our curriculum, which I know in North America tends to be part of the school curriculum, doesn't it? You have to present before your class. Did you have that experience?
I really didn't much when I was growing up, but my kids, definitely that is the way it is now. They're adults, but just graduated college recently, and they were always having to do that. I kind of wish that would have been something that I would have had to do a little bit more in school. I think it would have made me feel a little more confident a little sooner. But no, it wasn't. But I think that's sort of where it shifted to now, because I think the way that we operate as a society now is so much of this, these groups and meetings and speaking. In most professions, you're going to have that. So it hasn't been, but I think it definitely.
Because a number of people that I've worked with have had the experience of having to do that speaking at school and being shut down, being ridiculed because they froze. And that's often where I find clients get that sort of, oh, no, back to that mindset, because on one occasion, and possibly it was only the one occasion, something traumatic happened. They made a decision that therefore I could never do that again. Self-preservation, understandable.
Yep.
But yeah, so that was the reason I was asking about that, because different people have different experiences and different reactions to that. Thank you.
Maybe it was a benefit to me that I didn't have to do it, because maybe it didn't give me the opportunity to feel that, terror in that way and mess up so much. But I mean, the one speech class I had to take in college was a pretty small group of people. I think there was probably like 20 people in there. So it wasn't too bad, but still.
And you were all volunteers.
You
had
didn't
all
have
chosen to do that particular class. Yes.
You actually didn't have a choice. You had to take it as part of the degree. So yes, that was the one class. And I thought, I'm going to get it over with, because I don't ever want to do it again. And here
you are.
Yeah.
Love it. Okay. I can relate to that from the author perspective, because I had never expected, it just didn't feature on my radar. But a friend of mine had bought a chapter in a book, and then sadly took a mental health episode that meant she couldn't fulfill on the contract. So she literally handed it to me and said, Wendy, you don't need to pay me anything, just fulfill the contract for me. Okay, don't look a gift horse in the mouth. Right. And so that was my first experience of writing officially. I'd written loads of stuff before, but I mean, that was my first published work. So yes, I can understand the, I had no intention of, but, oh, here I am.
Sometimes that's the best way, I think, when we just are not expecting it, because you don't really have time to think about what are all the things that could go wrong. You just have to
Yes.
do it. And, maybe that's a benefit.
Yeah, absolutely. Not if the what if, but, oh, what if?
Yes, I love that.
Yeah, great. Thank you. So we've looked at your page experience, we've looked at your stage experience, and under the page, we know that there's something possibly percolating in future. Love it, love it. I'm going to ask you, what are you working on at the moment? You've just got a book out, though, haven't you? Tell us about the book that you've just published.
So I just published a book called Free from the Cage. I'm just going to hold it up for you here.
Yes, please. Oh,
Yeah, it's a guide to take you from overwhelm to peace. And it is a book in two parts. The first part is learning how to access your subconscious mind to get into those feelings from past events. Those things that literally, when you say, I had a bad experience and it now freezes me, it's, so I go back and figure out where that's coming from. So that's the first part of the book, kind of sorting through all of that. Then the second part of the book is all of the mindset changes that you can make once you've gone through and process that. So if you do have a fear of public speaking, you can change that and have confidence in it. Or if you do have a phobia of some sort, or if you did have a traumatic experience, you don't expect that every time something happens in your life again, it will be that same experience. So that's the kind of the goal of the book, is to help you find out where are these things, these stuck points. Back to the drawer analogy, what's the thing that's making the drawer get stuck? Let's find it, let's work through it, let's heal it, and then change the mindset. So that's my book, Free from the Cage, and free from our emotional cage, whatever it is that's holding us back.
Yeah, yeah. I'm going to ask you, when you sat down to write it, did you have any notion of the journey you would go on as you wrote it?
You know, I don't think I did at first, because I think I was like, I'm writing this because this is the stuff that I do with clients and it just seems to make sense to me. I'll put it down in the order that I would work with someone. But as I was doing it, my own stuff is coming up. Even if I've processed some things before, those things are coming up again. And it really was a journey to kind of find my own freedom in that. And no, I don't think that I really understood that. Probably about halfway through, I started to realize, like, this is really for me, which is honestly the best way to write something, I think, is to write it for yourself. Because if you're not drawing in your own attention on it, it's going to be really hard to get anybody else to feel connected to. So
Exactly, because you've got to feel connected to it yourself. And the reason I'm asking this is because, as I said, my first chapter was not intended, but putting pen to paper, and that was only a short amount. We had it was 3,000 word limit, but just getting it out was such a cathartic experience.
yeah.
And that was the first book that went out last year. And then later on in the year, I was curating a multi-author book as well. And all of the authors who contributed said, I didn't realize this was going to be such a journey for me.
Yes. Yeah. Because the vulnerability, you're putting yourself out there, that was the scariest part to me, was once it was all done, even letting an editor look at it and saying, I'm handing all of, my blood, sweat, and tears over to you, and all your vulnerability is right out there for people to see. And so it is a little scary, but once it's received and you start getting that feedback, like, oh, it's not so bad, or someone relates to something, then you're like, oh, that's exactly what I was going for.
Yes.
So
That's the thing, is as long as one person or more has been impacted, it's been worth it, hasn't it?
yes, absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. Beautiful. The book came out in when?
I had my launch in August, so
It's
not too
August 2024. I'm saying that, audience, because you might be catching this at a later date. Yeah.
Yeah.
Got it. 2024. So that's only as we're recording this at the beginning of November, that's not long ago. How are the sales going?
Doing pretty well, you know, just, yeah, you just put your dream out there and just, you know, keep marketing, and it's getting
Yeah.
out there. So yeah, definitely happy about that.
Beautiful. Audience marketing. Did you hear that word? This is where podcasts come in, because
Absolutely.
you can get yourself and your book in front of a whole heap more people when you talk to somebody else's network. Just
Absolutely.
saying that when you have a launch coming up, think about reverse engineering. Who do you need to be in front of?
Yes, so smart. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
working on an audio book for it right now.
Great.
Sometime this month I should have that done too. So, because I know for self-help books and a lot of my clients, they'll say, you know, I'd rather just listen. And
Yeah.
I personally like that too, especially I think when for a self-help book, if the author reads it and you can connect with them that way, I think that's helpful. It always is to me if I read a
Yeah.
self-help book or listen to it on audio. I like to hear that. So that's
Particularly
important.
if they're a good narrator. If they're not, then
I guess I'll have to see how that goes. I haven't done it yet, so we'll
it's
see.
actually a real art to it, because if you're planning to do it on Audible, then you have lots of hoops to go through. The
Yeah.
quality has to be the same. If your voice changes within the day, and it probably will, recording at the same time so that there doesn't sound literally sound to be different voices through the day.
Okay.
The where you record, make sure it's somewhere that is well soundproofed, so that it doesn't sound like you have your head down the toilet and echoey.
Yeah.
There are all sorts of wonderful little tips and tricks around this. Audience, if you want to know more, ping me a message. So Audible is absolutely fantastic, because you're talking about a fair amount of hypnosis stuff, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean, the exercises at the end of each chapter, which I forgot to mention before. So at the end of each chapter, there are exercises. Some of them are kind of a meditation style. So, you know, hopefully I can kind of put a little bit of that, maybe even at the end of the book, adding some meditations in or something, you know, that would translate a little differently than if you were just reading it yourself. So,
Yeah, that was the point I was coming on to, that the scripts, the hypnosis, the transcripts and the meditations and things are so much more powerful when they are heard than
yes.
when they're read, because obviously you're trying to go, I'm relaxing, I've got my eyes closed. What was the next word?
Right.
Yeah, I
Don't
think
do
the
it while you're
Audible version.
driving either.
The Audible version would be wonderful, wonderful. Have you got a Kindle version out?
Actually, that's coming soon too.
Okay.
Probably next week or so that'll be ready. So
Okay. Yay.
lots of stuff in progress.
Yes. It's not something that's done in a heartbeat, is it? It takes a while.
You know, I've had my mom actually said to me, she's like, I had no idea how much stuff was involved in writing a book. She's like, you're always telling me something else you're doing. And I'm like, yeah, it's a process, but you know, it's kind of fun learning it all too. And you know, then it preps you if you do want to write future things. So
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it'll go one of two ways. Oh, I'm not doing that again.
right,
Oh, yeah.
exactly.
I'm going to do this. What's the next one again? And as you're writing, as you've said already, you've got some things percolating for the next one.
Yes.
So yeah,
Yeah.
I'm in the process. I'm in the process of writing a book myself.
Oh, yay.
Yay! My life with 20 kilos, which is why if you see in my Facebook
Yeah.
posts, you'll
Yeah.
see hashtag 20 kilos life. So mine's all about what you can let go of as well, both
Love
physically,
that.
because the 20 kilos relates to the baggage limit
Okay.
in on some of the airlines around you, Asia. 20 kilos, for those of you who are in North America and think in pounds, it's around 44 pounds. So nothing to do with kilos of cocaine. Okay, let me just put that out there. And then it's also about the mental baggage that we can let go of, and
Right.
also the spiritual stuff. What are we holding on to without really thinking about it and processing it and see, is this really serving me now, or can I let go of that and take something else on? Knowing when
Yeah.
to hold and knowing when to fold.
Absolutely. Yes. You know, it just made me think of my youngest son last year he backpacked through Spain, the Camino Santiago.
Yes.
And before he went, I was kind of looking at all these different web pages or on Facebook and stuff, and people who were doing it and what they were packing and all that. And I remember one person was saying how they went and they ended up shipping home like all this stuff that they didn't need. And they were like, you know, what did you send home? And they're like, well, you know, like all my fears and like, you know, it's just you think about all the stuff that you brought along because you think you need these things to survive something. It's really just fear that you're
Yes.
carrying. You know, are
Yeah.
you gonna make it without it? Yeah. So I love that. I think that's a great concept that for your
Love
book.
it.
Look forward to
Love it.
reading.
Thank you. Yes, it's coming out in June. Just putting it
Oh,
out there, folks.
oh,
Anyway,
yeah.
that's a
Wonderful.
little bit about me, and this conversation is about you. So we've looked at your page, we've looked at your stage, and we've looked at what you're working, what you've got out at the moment. And audience, all of this information will be in the show notes. When the Kindle comes out, when the Audible version comes out, I'm going to ask you to let me know, Jennifer, because my show notes are dynamic. What I mean
Okay.
by that is when guests have come on and they've told me that something's coming up, they let me know. I put up a big social splash, change the show notes on the YouTube show notes, and say, right, go back and check out this wonderful conversation that I had with Jennifer. And by the way, this is the link to her Audible version, her Kindle version. Go check it out.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And when you've got something else coming up, let me know, like when the
Like,
novel comes out, and we'll have you on again.
fantastic.
Exciting, because there'll be quite a change, a shift in what's going on in your life. And I'd love to get the catch up. Yay. Beautiful. Okay, as we're coming to kind of full circle, I'd like to ask you, how do you embody your words when you take them from page to stage?
You know, I think the best thing to do, the best way that I can do that is really just by sharing a story of something that's happened to me and how, or someone else, you know, it just depends. I think it's a little better if it's something real personal to you, though. Putting that vulnerability out there, you're going to be able to connect with people more. And so I usually try to find something that I can put out that people will relate to. And then how was I able to make a change through that? So applying the work I do to the story and trying to connect emotionally. I think emotionally is sort of it's my niche. It's where I'm reaching people is getting into those emotions. And so that's my thing, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. I'm sure you've heard of Les Brown. He makes he's got his thing that says, never tell a story without a point,
Yeah. Yeah.
and never give a point without telling a story.
Oh, I like
That's
that.
exactly what you're doing there. So you're giving us a bit of flesh around a point. And as we
Mhm.
said earlier, that it hits the subconscious far more easily than if you give the plain truth, as it were.
Right.
Love it,
Yeah.
love it. And the emotions, as we're going back to that again, isn't it? That's the seat of all of our
Mhm.
decisions. We might like to think we're logical creatures. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
And
It's all emotions. The emotions are running the show. That is just the facts. That's what's happening.
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, the logical thing rubber stamps it, but frankly, the decision's been made back here in the reptilian brain. It's the emotions. That's where you've got to go for it. Yeah,
Mhm.
beautiful, beautiful. Ah, I'm so with you on this one. So we've looked at the page, we've looked at the stage, we've looked at what you're working on, your publicizing, get my teeth in, and what's potentially coming later. I mean, that obviously your focus is at the moment is on the work that you've just got out. But
Yeah.
do you have a concept of when you're looking to get the novel,
I don't
non-fiction?
know. You know, I think things always take longer than I think they will. So I kind of hate throwing a time frame out. It's kind of unfolding for me right now, and I'm
Yeah.
it almost feels like it's just sort of being downloaded at this point. Like I'm just every day I'm like, oh, this is, where it's going to need to go. So I'm kind of making my notes. I haven't actually gone too far into writing chapters at this point,
Yeah.
sort of letting sort of tell itself to me at this moment. So,
Yes.
maybe in the next year or so.
Sometime next year.
Yeah. Yeah. I get, like you said, I'm kind of focused now on getting what I've just completed out there. I don't want to, get to the finish line and then not do the next thing that needs to happen here. So working on all that as my priority, and then working in the
Absolutely.
novel in the meantime. So.
And that's the thing, isn't it? Appreciating what we've achieved before we move on.
Yes, because I think that's an issue for people a lot of times. For me, definitely, it's like, okay, done. Now what's next? Instead of saying, what is there to appreciate about what I just accomplished, or what I've, worked on so hard? Like, let me enjoy that for a few minutes. So,
Yes.
but then the brain wants to go. The brain wants to
Yeah.
go on to things. So, but that's okay.
Holding the two in tandem, that's the fun, isn't it? Yeah. Love it.
Indeed.
Okay. But as we're winding up, Jennifer, have you got some final words of wisdom to share with us?
Yeah. I think, and I think of this because it's actually what I wrote in the beginning of my book, kind of the dedication. I wrote, for anyone in need of healing, to keep going, keep going. And I I think that's a powerful statement, not only for if you're trying to heal something, but if you're also just trying to accomplish something. If you have a goal, the tendency to get almost there and step away, give up, to just keep on going and see what happens next. Can you break through that fear? Can you get up on the stage? Can you get the book completed? Can you heal some trauma from your past? It's all doable. We just have to be willing to keep going. So that's kind of my little.
Oh, thank you.
Keep going.
Thank you. Just keep going, one foot in front of the other.
Yes.
Yeah. And appreciating that you have done that, put one foot in front of the other, because there are times when that's all you can do, isn't it? Focus on literally the next step. Yeah.
Definitely.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. It's been a joy and a pleasure to have this conversation with you today, and to find out your from page to stage. Thank
Well,
you.
thank you so much. I really appreciate you having me, and I just love hearing your perspective on things, and knowing that you speak with so many authors. It's really awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. From us, bye from now.
Bye.